How are you doing, ladies and gentlemen? This is Jake or Joneski's coming at you from your Random Heroes, and today I have a Holy Paladin player versus player guide for World of Warcraft Warlords of Draenor patch 6.2, the second season of Warlords of Draenor. And it is a little late. I wanted to bring this out earlier for you, more at the beginning of the season or before the season even started. But anyways, first I will move on to the talents. Then I will share with the glyphs that I use and glyphs I believe you should use in certain situations. Go with stat priorities. Then last but not least, I will go with playstyle for both arenas and rated battlegrounds, as they do differ slightly. And I will also include my macros somewhere along the way. So let's get right on with the talents. So moving on to the talents, and I will just set a little disclaimer right before I get started. This is all my own opinion, what I believe, what I play with, and I'm not the highest rated player. I'm not some 2700 Grievous Gladiator, and I'm not some Hero of the Alliance player, but I hope I can give you some insight, whether you're a 1100 player, an 1800 player, or you're above me as like a 2400 rated player. Hopefully I can help you out with a couple tips and tricks or some little things. So starting off with the level 15 talents, you have Speed of Light, Long Arm Are the Law, and Pursuit of Justice. This I don't really have to talk much about. Speed of Light, it gives you increased movement speed by 70% for 8 seconds. It's an instant on a 45-second cooldown, and you can use this while you're silenced. Very, very good ability for both arenas and rated battlegrounds to get from one place to another very quickly. And now for the level 30 talents, you have Fist of Justice, Repentance, and Blinding Light. Now you can take Blinding Light out of this equation for the most part. It is not that great in my opinion. 2-minute cooldown on it, and all of that CC is broken with damage. But you do then have Repentance and Fist of Justice. Fist of Justice makes your Hammer of Justice basically a 30-second cooldown, and I believe it increases the range. Don't quote me on that, but moving into Repentance, it is a incapacitate, and it works. It's a 5-second, I believe, 5 to 8-second incapacitate. I can't even remember. I barely use it, but it is viable in certain compositions and arenas, mainly in 2s. You'll see it, and it is on a 15-second cooldown, so it is not spammable, but it can be very strong against if you have a team that's a lot of single target damage with very few incapacitates that could possibly DR. But almost 9 times out of 10, I suggest you take Fist of Justice. It is just too strong. Moving into the level 45 talents, you have Selfless Healer, Eternal Flame, and Sacred Shield. Selfless Healer is not that strong, and Eternal Flame, ever since the overall nerfs, in my opinion, to Word of Glory, Eternal Flame is not that great as well for player versus player combat. PvE, however, Eternal Flame is still the talent to take, but PvP, player versus player arenas and RBGs, it is all about Sacred Shield. You're able to get an Absorb Shield for around 5,000 damage on up to 3 players, and it lasts 30 seconds, and it absorbs about 5,000 damage every 5 seconds. Very strong. I always say it is better to shield the damage than have a person take the damage and then have to heal it back up. So moving on to level 60 talents, these are Clemency, Unbreakable Spirit, and Hand of Purity. Now in PvP, they all have their own place. Most of the time in arenas, you do want to run Clemency. It gives you 2 charges of all your hand abilities. That is Hand of Sacrifice, Hand of Freedom, and Hand of Protection. And in arenas, very important, very important. Basically protects you from roots more often. It protects you from physical damage more often. And it protects a certain person from 30% incoming damage more often. How good is that? But your hands are not as necessary as your Divine Shield and your Divine Protection in rated battlegrounds. That is why in rated battlegrounds I often, not always, but often run with the Unbreakable Spirit. Now what this does, it reduces the cooldown of your Divine Shield, your Divine Protection, and Lay on Hands by 50%. Though you can't use Lay on Hands in rated battlegrounds, having reduced cooldown on your Divine Shield and Divine Protection are very good right now, as most rated battleground teams are heavy caster cleaves. But moving on to Hand of Purity, it is similar to Hand of Sacrifice, but it reduces damage of a person for damage over time, and on top of that, an extra pure, just 15% flat damage reduction. It does have a 30-second cooldown, which is a shame, but this is good if you're against heavy dot cleaves or in certain rated battlegrounds. Though I don't suggest it, it is not bad. Now moving on to your level 75 talents. In my opinion, there is really only one option for this, and that is Sanctified Wrath. Now with this, it is a passive that your Avenging Wrath, which is your main cooldown ability, lasts 50% longer and grants you more frequent access to your abilities while it lasts. This reduces your Holy Shock, one of your main healing abilities instant that you should be using off cooldown, from about a 5-second cooldown to a 3-second cooldown. That is huge. You can be casting Holy Shock almost after every single casted spell you use while Avenging Wings is up, or Divine Purpose, whatever the hell they call it now. And now for your level 90 talents, you have Holy Prism, Light's Hammer, and Execution Sentence. Now, though I believe there's only one viable option, I will show you two that you can use. First is Executioner Sentence. This is what I personally use, and it is a very large burst heal on someone, and it is, I guess, technically called Stay of Execution when it is on your ally, and it's basically a 56,000, 60,000 heal around, give or take, like a couple thousand, 10,000, 8,000, 9,000, 30,000, I don't know. But it's a very large burst of healing on a teammate. And then for damage, which I do not suggest you use this for damage, it is a slight damage over time, and then it is a large burst at the end of it. It's for damage, it's aight. Oh, it's you know. But it is an amazing heal, burst heal. It's on a minute cooldown. This is one of, in my opinion, one of your big cooldowns that you use when your Avenging Wings is not up to help save someone's life. But you do also have Holy Prism, which was originally when you were level 90 and, say, early Warlords of Draenor, this was the talent to take. This, it's just a basic burst heal. It's up every 20 seconds, and if you damage someone, it heals everyone around them, and if you heal someone, it damages everyone around that person you heal. So it is not bad, but I think that Executioner Sentence is just better for player versus player combat. Simple as that. And now moving on, finally, the level 100 talents. You have Beacon of Faith, Beacon of Insight, and Saved by the Light. Now, I believe all of these are viable in certain situations, but you will often only see one of these. Now, the one you will often, almost always see is Saved by the Light. That is what I often use now. And it is when your beacon target or yourself drops below 30% health, you get a 30% absorb shield to your life added. So it gives you 60% effective health at that point. And it does only last 10 seconds though, and it does go on a minute-long cooldown, so it cannot be spammed. This is amazing. I can't go on and on about how amazing this ability is. But I will also go over these other talents because they do definitely have their purpose in PvP. Now you have Beacon of Faith. This is very good against heavy dot cleaves, as with the Affliction Warlock buffs and patch 6.2, you are going to be seeing a lot of Affliction Warlocks in both arenas and probably even more in rated battlegrounds. So what this does is it gives you a second Beacon of Light, essentially. And this basically helps you spread around healing as the Holy Paladin. You are considered more of a large single target healing and utility with your hands. But now with Beacon of Faith, you have a lot more spread healing pressure. So dot cleaves are not as, how should I put this? They're not as deadly compared to for a Holy Paladin. You can really heal through them much easier. And now moving on to the last talent, which I have yet to experiment with, but on paper it does look extremely good, is Beacon of Insight. Now this is very similar to an Unleash Elements of a Resto Druid. It's not called Unleash Elements, I know, but what it does is it increases your next single target healing spell on a person for 1 minute by 40%. Or Holy Radiance, I should point that out, because Holy Radiance is definitely a use spell in Rated Battlegrounds, which I will go over later, but it is on a 15-second cooldown. But what is so cool is when it's consumed, it'll jump to the next lowest health target party member. So you do not have to keep constantly casting this, and this will keep jumping to the lowest health party member for increased healing on that person, though within 40 yards, which is a pretty large range, but you can only have one out at a time. But this is very, very strong. I have not tested it, but I believe this could in fact be very viable for PvP. But that is it for the talents, and next we will in fact be moving on to the glyphs. So now we will be moving into the glyph portion of this guide, and so the glyphs I generally use as a baseline will be Glyph of Denounce, which reduces the cast time of your Denounce for every Holy Shock you use by 0.5 seconds. And this effect stacks up to 3 times, which will make your Denounce an instant cast spell. This is very good, as not only will it help you do damage, but the debuff that Denounce gives someone is it makes them so they cannot critical strike. Now, I'll give you a specific example of why this is so amazing. Say you're going against a Destruction Warlock, and they're casting Chaos Bolt, and you cannot kick that in time. You throw out an instant Denounce you have, and instantly the Chaos Bolt damage is reduced insanely because they cannot crit with that, which is a guaranteed crit otherwise. Then I use Glyph of Merciful Wrath, which reduces the cooldown and effect of your Avenging Wrath by 50%. Now, in my opinion, Avenging Wrath is already strong enough with 100% healing. It is more than enough to top your team off in seconds and keep them topped off for the whole duration. So if you have it reduced to 50%, I find that cooldown is still definitely good enough to keep your whole team topped off and give insane burst healing. But now it just lasts longer, and I mean, it doesn't last longer. I mean, the cooldown is reduced to 1.5 minutes from 3 minutes. And after the 30 seconds of Avenging Wrath, if you take the talent I said you should in the talent portion of this video, that after the 30 seconds, you only have to wait 1 minute before Avenging Wrath is up again, that you can juggle around your other cooldowns with. And now the third and final glyph I usually run as a baseline would be probably Glyph of Beacon of Light, and this makes it so your Beacon of Light is no longer on global cooldown, so it helps you with your mana regeneration and your healing, so you do not have to waste a global cooldown on Beacon of Light switching targets for increased heals and reduced mana costs on your Flash of Light and Holy Light. Now, there are a lot of different glyphs you can run with for different situations, and so for, say, Rated Battlegrounds, I pretty much always run with Glyph of Cleanse, just about 24/7 in Rated Battlegrounds. Now what this glyph does is it gives your cleanse 2 maximum charges instead of just being able to use it once, but it increases the cooldown by 4 seconds, and I will take this any damn day. This makes it just so you can cleanse more, and with how many dot cleaves there are running around right now, amazing. Keep your dispels up, at least pad the meters to make you look good, at the very least. But moving on, we have Glyph of Divine Protection, is one I often use, especially against a lot of heavy physical damage teams, whether it's arenas or Rated Battlegrounds. And what this does is it makes your Divine Protection, instead of reduce magic damage by 40%, it reduces magic damage by 20% and physical damage by 20%. Very, very good against heavy physical damage teams. Now you can always also use against melee teams Glyph of Devotion Aura, and what this does is it turns your 3-minute cooldown Devotion Aura into a 2-minute cooldown, but it only affects you with the decreased damage and the immunity, yes, to silence and interrupt effects. Now, Hand of Freedom, the Glyph of Hand of Freedom, is also extremely good. And this makes your Hand of Freedom reduce the remaining duration of all CC by 25% and additional CC applied within 4 seconds of your Hand of Freedom, also reduced by 25%. And you can use this while you are in a stun, which is so great. So this reduces the effective CC. Very good. It takes some getting used to as far as using it when you're in stuns or right before you get stunned. So I hope you liked the glyph portion of this guide, and we will be moving on to a very short section with stat priorities. So now we'll move on to a very short section that is stat priorities. And though this is only my opinion, I believe the stat priority goes like a little something like this. So it will be haste over mastery over crit / versatility over fucking spirit, any other bullshit. But this is only my opinion. I believe haste is the best. You should be trying to have as much haste as possible, and mastery is also very strong for holy paladins. So with that, we will be moving into my macros. And let me just bring them up here real quick, just so I am positive I can go over with them. So my first ones, they're pretty general. I need to actually put them in my general macros, which I do not. And they're just targeting macros from Arena 1 through 3. And simple enough, just so I don't have to be clicking my Gladius frames or any other thing like that, just to be targeting my arena enemies. And then I have mod macros for all my different hands of freedom and sacrifices for my different arena members. Now, what I like to do is have their names, but you can also do party 1 and party 2. Now for my bot macro, it is just hand of protection with and I throw this on a keybind, which is usually shift or control. Now I have a Razor Naga, which my buttons 1 through 3 are shift, control, and alt. So that way I can easily bop my my arena partners Hand of Sacrifice or Hand of Freedom, and this includes my cleanse. So I really don't have to go over all of those macros individually. I could take them out right here. I do modifiers, which use shift, control, and alt to target my different party members. So I have as little brain lag as possible via clicking or targeting them with my targeting buttons. And then I have basically both my Hodge and my Rebuke macros, so I do not have to target my arena enemies to Hodge or Rebuke, which is my R interrupt on them. So there's a little brain lag as possible, and so little mechanical things do not get in the way of being able to get a stun off as soon as I can and being able to get a counter off. So that is really, even though this was a very short little section, that was really all of my macros right there for my Holy Paladin. And I mean, I have the same thing for my Sacred Shield, though I don't use it often. Oh, let me go over this while we're at it. I do have a couple more. One is a Devotion Aura macro, which simply says this is good for RBGs. When I use it, it yells in chat, Devotion Aura free cast. So that just helps the other healers on my team, or even the other mages on my team, know they can free cast without getting interrupted or silenced. And then I do have a mouse over cleanse macro for rated battleground, so I do not have to click and target my person I want to cleanse them. And I do also have the same thing for my Sacred Shield. Now I do not like to use this for my Holy Shock, even though that is also an instant cast, for the sole reason is my hard casts are not mouse over. and that's because I like to be able to move around and look at other things without having to keep my mouse on someone when casting a spell. And now this is actually the end. Hey guys, I am sorry to say I am going to be delaying the play style portion of this video, and I'm going to make it its very own separate video, as this is getting a little long and I have a lot I would like to do with my playstyle video that I do not have the time to do just yet, and I want to release this video as soon as possible. So hopefully in the next week I can get a playstyle Holy Paladin guide to y'all. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.